Hello, my name is Jared Brener,
I'm Ilana Segal.
and today we're going to be analyzing the poem Daddy by Sylvia Plath. So, just before we get into the analysis, we're going to read the poem over once. You don't look at it or focus on any um, analyzing or anything like that, just listen and enjoy, and we'll get back to the analysis later.
You do not do any more, black shoe, in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or a chew.
Daddy, I have had to kill you. You died before I had time. Marble heavy, a bag full of God. Ghastly statue with one gray toe. Big as a Frisco seal.
And a head in the freakish Atlantic, where it pours bean green over blue, in the waters of beautiful Nauset, I used to pray to recover you. Ach du.
In the German tongue, in the Polish town, scraped flat by the roller, of wars, 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 but the name of the town is common, my Polak friend.
Says there are a dozen or two, so I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I never could talk to you, the tongue stuck in my jaw.
It's stuck in a barbed wire snare. Itch, 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 itch. I could hardly speak. I thought every German was you, and the language obscene.
An engine, chuffing me off like a Jew to Dachu Auschwitz-Belsen. I begin to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew.
The snows of the Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna, are not very pure or true. With my gypsy ancestress and my weird luck, and my Tarek pack, I may be a bit of a Jew.
I have always been scared of you, with your left waff, your gobbledygoo, and your neat mustache, and your Aryan eye, bright blue.
Panzerman, oh you. Not God, but a swastika, so black no sky could squeak through. Every woman adores a fascist. The boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you.
You stand at the blackboard, Daddy, in the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that. No, not any less, the black men who.
Bit my pretty red heart in two. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20 I tried to die, and get back to you. I thought even the bones would do.
But they pulled me out of the sack, and they stuck me together with glue. And then I knew what to do. I made a model of you, a man in black with a Mein Kampf look.
And a love of the rack and the screw. And I said, I do. So Daddy, I'm finally through. The black telephone's off at the root. The voices just can't worm through.
If I've killed one man, I've killed two. The vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year. 7 years, if you want to know. Daddy, you can lie back now.
There's a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you. Daddy, you bastard, I'm through. Okay, so wait, that thing was there. Okay, so now that you've listened to the poem once, it's time to analyze. First thing is the title, Daddy. So we can first off assume that the poem may be about Sylvia Plath's father, or just fathers in general, maybe. Then that goes on to the fact that the writer of the author of this poem is Sylvia Plath, and she may be the speaker as well, but we don't know who the speaker is. And this poem was written in the 1960s, so it's a fairly new poem, but it's still, I think, is personally is a difficult read. So we went ahead and translated, like, summarized basically what each stanza means.
You do not do any more, black shoe, in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or chew. So, from this, we can infer that she kind of lived, I guess, the first 30 years of her life scared to do anything, even sneeze, which uh, may lead us to believe that her father was not very nice to her. After researching, we found that her father had his leg amputated, which is where the shoe reference comes in, due to some illnesses that he had. Um, and he lived a miserable life, or she lived a miserable life for 30 years after he died when she was young.
Okay, so the next stanza: Daddy, I have had to kill you. You died before I had time. Marble heavy, a bag full of God. Ghastly statue with one gray toe, big as a Frisco seal. So with background research, we figured out that her father had died when she was 8, before she had time to get to know him. Obviously, she didn't know him, so he was nothing more than a statue to her. That's where she compares him to a statue with marble heavy. He's also compared to a bag full of God, because for the time that she knew him, up until she was 8, she was fond of him. Like, as a child, as a daughter, she's fond of her father up until his death. Um, but she didn't really know him very well, and she was very distant from him, like people are to God, because of his early death. And then finally, the reference, one gray toe, big as a Frisco seal. First of all, is showing how humongous this statue her father is, showing her fondness of him. But also, what was mentioned before with the background research, how he had gangrene, and so he had a huge toe because of the illness, and then eventually had to get his leg amputated.
And ahead in the freakish Atlantic, where it pours bean green over blue, in the waters of beautiful Nauset, I used to pray to recover you. Och do. So the Sylvia Plath grew up in Massachusetts. That's where Nauset is located. And there she prayed for her father to get better from all the illnesses that he had. Her father was a German immigrant. And the last line of the stanza, "Och du," is German. To sigh, like OU.
In the German tongue, in the Polish town, scraped flat by the roller of wars, 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 but the name of the town is common, my Polack friend. So this is referencing World War II, where Germany invaded Polish towns. Um, and in this, Germany would rename the towns in Poland as, like, they invaded, and they just destroyed everything in their path, scraped flat by the rollers. Wars, wars, wars is just the war, of course. And then, but the name of the town is common, my Polack friend. She's starting to get on to the next stanza, where she doesn't know the town that her father is from. She says that the name of it is common.
There are a dozen or two. So I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I never could talk to you. The tongue stuck in my jaw. So again, that's just reiterating what Jared said, that the her father's hometown, the name was probably so common and she never knew it due to all the wars, and it's probably been renamed. This goes to show how little she knew him. He probably never talked to her about his past or when he grew up or where he grew up or anything about that.
It's stuck in a barbed wire snare, itch, 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 itch. I could hardly speak. I thought every German was you, and the language obscene. So she tried to talk to herself. No, not herself, sorry. She tried to talk to her dad, but she found herself stuttering, itch, 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 itch. She thinks of her father as a monster, as seen by comparing him to a Nazi German. She thought every German was I yeah, she thought every German was her father. She like had no idea who he was. He was just like a random stranger to her, basically.
An engine, chuffing me off like a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. So for the This is a reference to the Holocaust when the Nazis sent all the Jews away to concentration camps by train. As her father being German, her like considering herself as a Jew at the time meant her being the opposite of him or not really related to him in any way. Like he didn't want any part of her. They didn't really understand each other, I guess.
The snows of the Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna, are not very pure or true. With my gypsy ancestors and my weird luck, and my Tarek pack, I may be a bit of a Jew. Sorry this got overlapped. So, there's light positive things with the snows of Tyrol and the clear beer of Vienna, which are like nice things. Like Vienna is famous for its beer, and then snow is obviously pure, and that's she's saying that that's not very pure or true. So she's basically talking about this in contrast to the destruction that Germany had done in World War II, and then the Nazis during this time thought that their actions were actually pure, but they're really not. So that's the purpose of those two lines. Um, and then she says she may be a bit of a Jew, um, as her father died unluckily and she barely knew him because he was German. So saying that she is a Jew is basically saying that they're strangers and they could not be related in any way.
I have always been scared of you, with your Luftwaffe, your gobbledygoo, your neat mustache, and your Aryan eye, bright blue. Panzerman, Panzerman, oh you. So here she uses oh you at the end of the stanza, this time in English, just like she used it in German in the third stanza. Um, she states that she's always been scared of him, um, maybe scared of what happened to him or the idea of getting to know him. Um, and she compares it to a German airstrike and Hitler, which has a negative connotation to it.
Not God, but a swastika, so black no sky could squeak through. Every woman adores a fascist. The boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. So now she's saying not God. So she's retracting her comparison to God from earlier, saying that he was a bag full of God. Um, so now she's saying he's a swastika. She is no longer fond of him. His death overcame her with depression, like a swastika. And then the next three lines of this stanza: every woman adores a fascist. Uh, this is very sarcastic, basically saying, oh, of course I should love someone who's done so much damage to me.
You stand at the blackboard, Johnny, in the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that, no, not any less a black man who. So here she goes more into detail about her feelings towards him after his death, how the depression affected how she felt about her father after he died, and what the loss kind of did to her emotionally. She compares him to a devil by saying the cleft in his chin was sort of like the clefts in a devil's foot. She also refers to him as a black man, which is meant to be like dark and evil, not related to race.
Bit my pretty red heart in two. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20 I tried to die and get back to you. I thought even the bones would do. So, no less than her, this is going from the stanza before, but no less a devil for that. Not any less than the black man who. So it's no less than her ex-husband who had broken her heart. Her father's just as evil as the person that cheated on her. At 28, tried to die. She later tries to commit suicide, and then she thought this suicide could be her way to be back with her father, who's dead, to go to heaven, I guess, with him.
But they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck me together with glue, and then I knew what to do. I made a model of you, a man in black with Mein Kampf look. So after she tries to kill herself, she's put in a mental hospital where she learns to hate her father, visualizing him as Hitler.
And a love of the rack and the screw. And I said, I do, I do. So there, she's just accepting his death. So Daddy, I'm finally through. More acceptance. Like she's done with it. She's tired of being depressed over it, of just like constantly thinking about him and how she never got to know him and stuff like that. The black telephone's off at the root. The voices just can't worm through. This is a symbol showing that she can no longer communicate with him as he's dead, so she can't get to know him any more than she already does because she has no way of speaking to him.
If I've killed one man, I've killed two. The vampire who said he was you, and drank my blood for a year, 7 years if you want to know. Daddy, you can lie back now. So this is like going more into her emotions towards her father and towards her husband who had an affair and ultimately left her. So it's more than just her father that's caused her emotional despair. Her husband is also to blame for her depression and her misery.
There's a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. There's dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you. Daddy, daddy, you bastard, I'm through. So this is repeating her acceptance and her finally being done with her father. So she's accepting his death. She's saying, all right, that's it. I'm done with it. She's concluded that she doesn't need him anymore, and that all he has ever had all he's ever caused her was pain. And she goes on to say that like the other people hated you too and stuff. It wasn't just her. So it's not just her being irrational. It's him being the one that caused her misery. So some overall things we got from the poem is a fearful and distant tone of her father, which is contrasted with her childlike and innocent rhyming. And this contrast makes the poem ominous and dark.
She uses dark, heavy, and violent diction throughout the poem, such as the reference to the German warpath and the Nazis. She also uses a lot of metaphors. The metaphor of her father as God and like a huge statue, as she is fond of him, but she didn't really know him.
She uses a metaphor of her father as Germany in World War II to describe him as destructive, and she uses a metaphor of herself as a Jew to describe the fact that she's nothing like her father. She's basically an opposite to her German father, based on the time frame, as she barely knew him.
Then the metaphor of her father later in the poem, comparing him to a Nazi or swastika, shows how she now resents him for the destruction he has caused to his Jewish daughter, or the emotional distress that he's caused on her.
He uses the color black a lot, like with black telephone, blackboard, black shoe, to show the darkness and melancholy of the poem and what she's trying to convey.
Later in the poem, she also compares her father and husband to vampires to show how they both suck the life out of her, leading to her misery. The diction of during these stanzas kind of goes back and is another example of the dark and violent diction used throughout the poem.
And finally, she uses multiple times the telephone to show communication, the lack of it with her father, which goes on to the fact that she barely knew him and stuff, and she never will be able to get to know him because he had died, so she had no way of communicating with him. That's the end of our analysis of Daddy by Sylvia Plath. I'm Jared Brener.
I'm Ilana Segal.
And we hope you enjoyed watching.